Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment, so we're going to have a couple of guests join us, and I'll introduce them shortly as we have Wilton Jackson II and A.D. Drew getting it done along with Charles Bishop. So welcome to episode 612 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KSOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. So again, let me bring everybody on in terms of Charles Bishop. None other than Wilton Jackson II and A.D. Drew. Charles Bishop, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well. We are definitely in the conference play, exciting action all over the place. When you're talking about the SWAC or MEAC, can't wait to get into it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. A.D. Drew, how are you?
Let me tell you what happened to me. We know the weather hit the Atlanta region over the weekend, correct?
Yes, it did.
So our opponent was smart. They got in town ahead of the weather and was snowed into the hotel.
And it's smart.
Saturday, everything was fine. You know, people were able to get out Saturday afternoon, so they came over to the arena for a shoot around because we postponed the game until Sunday because we didn't have staff who could make it to the game on Sunday. So Sunday, pregame, they're at their pregame meal, and their bus breaks down at their pregame meal. So they have to find transportation from their pregame meal back to their hotel so that they can get their stuff and get over to the arena, to Forbes Arena. Henceforth, a rescheduled game that was supposed to begin at 2 o'clock tips off at 4:10. Thus, the reason why there was no BCSN Sports Wrap with Brian and AD on Sunday night.
I knew that, and I was looking forward to texting you all upset, man. I got in my lab. I'm thinking I'm going to start in my week and start my week on the right note and get some of my stuff. So I don't even know. It just didn't feel right. I had to rush and make sure Dukes is ready, getting this stuff together. And I usually get to listen while I iron some clothes if I'm helping and you know, enjoying a meal or something. And I'm like, what you doing, man? Where's my show? My show. Fortunately, we did have HBC United. It kind of worked. That kind of worked. But that's a whole different framework of how they do their show. So it's just different. It's just different. Wilton Jackson II. You understand me? Does that make sense? You feel me?
Hey, it made perfect sense. I'm just glad I ain't had to deal with that mess that AD had to deal with the snow and the ice. We just dealt with cold temperatures and rain in Mississippi, so we was good. But nah, I'm good. Like conference play is like definitely hitting steam now. I saw some pretty intense games over the probably from last Thursday to Sunday, even yesterday. You know, so it's getting exciting. Some teams that you thought would be on top aren't necessarily on top. Some that weren't supposed to be somewhat on top or somewhere floating between the middle and could be at the top right now. But you know, It says January 14th, so you can't put too much stock into that.
Yeah, including a 3 overtime game with Alabama A&M and Jackson State just last night. We'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about that in the third segment. Yeah. But I just knew, I was like, oh, Bulldogs don't get, preferably maybe some people think of upset, particularly on the road. 10 seconds left, they up by 4, going to the line somehow, some way. Jackson says, not today.
Crazy.
They send it to a third overtime, and then they run away with it. But with that saying, let's get into some news. I'm going to go back to you, Charles. What's on your mind in terms of news of the day?
Yeah, this is hot off presses, but the SWAC Women's Basketball Weekly Honors just came out. And we take a look at Alcorn State's Destiny Brown, along with Jackson State's Talia Dilworth and Leanya Masnat. They were the SWAC Women's Basketball Players of the Week for their impressive performances this past week. We take a look at the double-double machine that is Destiny Brown. She averaged 19.5 points per game, going along with 10.5 rebounds per game, as she was a SWAC Offensive Player of the Week. Talia Dilworth was a significant contributor for Jackson State as the Tigers defeated Alabama A&M and Alabama State at home, where she averaged 16.5 points this past week. And then Massanet, 11 points against Alabama A&M and Alabama State in conference play this past week. She also contributed 6 rebounds per game for the Tigers. So those were your SWAC Women's Basketball Players of the Week. Another Dilworth doing something for Jackson State. Boy, I know them very, very well.
That's not right, man.
They pledge hard. They pledge hard.
Wilton Jackson. The second, do you have some superlatives you want to share with the MEAC, since Charles over there hogging it off for the SWAC?
Yes, I will get into the MEAC, and I'll kick it off from the women's side. North Carolina Central's Kyla Bryant and Norfolk State's Diamond Johnson were named Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference Co-Players of the Week. Howard Sanaya King was named the Rookie of the Week, while Norfolk State's forward Kiera Wheeler earned Defensive Player of the Week honors. Bryant averaged 27 points, 8.5 assists, and 6 rebounds in a 1-in-1 week for the Eagles, playing all 40 minutes against Morgan State, which was a really big game. Johnson led the Spartans to a 2-0 record, averaging 21.5 points, 3.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds, and 4.5 steals per game. Johnson delivered a standout performance in the win over Delaware State. King contributed 23 points, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 3 rebounds while shooting 8 of 14 from the field in the Bison's win over Morgan State. Wheeler averaged 14.5 points, 11.5 rebounds, another double-double, 2.5 steals, and 1.5 blocks across 2 wins for the Spartans. Against Delaware State, Wheeler tallied 10 points, 2 blocks, and 3 steals in the victory over Coppin State. She contributed 19 points, 14 rebounds, 1 block, and 2 steals.
Outstanding update. SWAC on the women's, and Wilton Jackson the second talking about MEAC men's and women's. Good information. Good job, Wilton. Hey, Wilton, you can smile, man. You can smile. Yeah, that serious face, like, man, who you at? Who back there? Who you back there?
Oh, no, I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
Be on my show, man. We don't let life get to us like that over here.
No, not at all.
Now, AD Drew want to copy your face. He's still cold and think about Atlanta.
They say, get comfortable for
hey, man, y'all better get comfortable and wipe all that frown off your face. I'm going to treat you like you can say, but you better put a smile on your face today. AD Drew, how you doing? What's the news that you want to share?
I really should be talking about this freshman at Howard named Blake Harper. But I'm doing my scouting report, but I'm going to save him until next week when I come back from DC after we play Howard. I don't know, by the way, we haven't released it yet, but got word from Howard that the game has moved up from 7 o'clock Eastern to 4 o'clock Eastern on Monday. So please note that you'll be seeing information come out with that on tomorrow. But let's talk about one of the things that I love, the fact that when people get a job at a public institution,
yes,
you find out information that you don't find out at private institution. And one of those is Michael Vick's contract. Let's talk about this contract. Vick's contract has a few interesting notes and caveats included within, according to Jamie Frankenberry of the Virginian Pilot. Vick, who was hired last month to replace Dawson Odom as the Spartans football leader, will make $400,000 annually, according to a Freedom of Information Act request granted to the Virginia pilot. The contract includes bonuses for MEAC championship, $10,000, FCS playoff wins, $15,000, as well as a coach of the year bonus between $2,500 and $5,000. Vick's $400,000 salary is $160,000 more than Dawson Odom's in 21, what his initial contract was for. Comparatively, Vick will be compensated with a little less than the highest paid FCS coach in Virginia, William and Mary's Mike London. Does that name sound familiar to you guys? Mm-hmm. It might sound familiar for you Howard folks. $409,991. That's an odd number. Don't wonder how they came up with that number. Vick will also
receive more than the highest paid FCS coach at the time he did the contract.
Vick will also receive an automatic 1-year extension if Norfolk finishes in the top half of the MEAC standings in his third season, according to language in the contract. Vick will also be provided a full-size SUV. So
can't be that. That's nice. I always want a nice SUV.
Look who in the football business. Okay.
Yes, it's pretty good. It matches obviously what we know. Tennessee State's coach Eddie George making at least at one time. I don't know where he is now, but he's at $400,000.
I do that. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
I do have one question about the contract.
Pushes up other salaries across the board. Go ahead, Drew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I noticed the bonuses: MEAC championship 10, FCS playoff win 15. I got a little problem with that, the way that's structured, because at MEAC championship only gets you $10,000, but a MEAC championship means you get to play for the Celebration Bowl, which is more money for the institution, versus the FCS playoff win at $15,000. That's probably going to cost your institution money to go to an FCS playoff game. And I don't see what the Celebration Bowl bonus is for winning the Celebration Bowl. So
I saw it on another document. It was like $50,000, I think. And if you won the FCS championship, they had something in there for that too, and it was $100,000.
Proximity to whiteness.
I think you said it. I mean,
you've answered my question.
Now, the other thing that is interesting about this contract that people, in all seriousness, people may not realize, the question that you may not consider when we talk about this before we get prepared to take our first break is that, remember, it's a negotiation. So it's not necessarily that Norfolk State put this on contract. They just may agree to it. It could have been his representative that asked for this to be included, and they were okay with it. So you also have to think a little bit about that this is not always the school, i.e. the athletic director, that is putting these particular centers in there. In fact, they might have had for FCS playoffs win as 5,000 initially, and then it had maybe 15 for MEAC championship. And as they negotiated back and forth, that the representative for Vick said, well, we'd rather have 15 here and this here, or this bonus, or we want $100,000 if we make it to the FCS championship game. And this is somebody that may be used to doing other type of contracts for players, or maybe used to doing, FBS coaches. So their normative understanding, as Charles was saying, in terms of proximity to rightness, maybe their automatic thought, not understanding the difference in this framework. So that's one thing that I think that we need to consider when we look at that. So just want to kind of give that update. I want to give you a chance, Wilton. What are your thoughts in terms of what you're hearing?
in terms of Vick's contract, or just him just get or
Yeah.
the
So
numbers?
what was reported by HBCU Premium Sports? Yeah, I'll give you a chance to go in either direction. But what they said here is they said 2,000 for the MEAC championship. They said 25,000 for a Celebration Bowl win and 100,000 for an FCS national championship, along with the ones that you got here, which is the FCS playoff win, 15,000, and as well as year bonus between 2,500 and 5,000.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, they're still giving, to AD's point, they're still giving more money to an FCS playoff win versus a win in the Celebration Bowl.
No,
Okay.
the FCS playoff win is 15,000.
Okay.
Celebration Bowl is 25,000.
Okay.
The FCS national champion is 100,000.
Oh, okay. I'm good with those numbers. I mean, at first, like I said, to AD's point, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, where's the Celebration Bowl numbers? But I couldn't remember if I had read it correctly when I saw it initially somewhere else. But I think it makes sense for it to be that way. Obviously, because at the end of the day, to AD's point, it will cost your institution more money to go to the FCS playoffs versus going to the Celebration Bowl, when you can obviously generate and bring more revenue into your institution. So if I'm Michael Vick, for sure, obviously trying to have a winning season, but definitely trying to get to that Celebration Bowl and win.
Yeah, I think what is, to your point, Drew, I think what is interesting is you would prefer to get the money associated with a Celebration Bowl, which is, for those that do not realize it, you're talking about essentially $1 million when you add ticket sales versus the guaranteed money that's on that contract. So you're getting $1 million for winning the MEAC, which is $10,000, but your institution is going to get a windfall of $1 million essentially, right? If you go to the playoffs, if you're bidding for a home, you got to put up $20,000, $30,000 is about to go on. Some of them are putting up $60K, and then obviously you got to give a percentage of your ticket sales up for that. And you do percentage of other sales like merchandise, as well as associated with food and beverages. So if you're on the road, they do pay for the travel up to a cap at a certain allotment, but you get money for that. So any money that you're making is going to be off of marketing or support you get outside of that, essentially. So that's where AD Drew's point, saying that in a lot of ways it's going to cost you more. So the only thing I would say is probably a playoff win in all true framework should be worth about $5,000 in bonus versus $15,000. Championship, I can see. You maybe could make that argument. I'm not sure, but I'll listen at least. Let's take a first break and come back on the other side. Get into some basketball talk. I got my top 5. We look at the women, and we'll have a video to play coming out of the intro in terms of coach that is getting off to a hot start. We'll see what that looks like on the other side when we get back.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonya from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Morehouse College and Tuskegee University men's basketball teams were selected to compete in the 2025 NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T. The fourth annual NBA HBCU Classic will be played in the Bay Area as part of NBA All-Star 2025 and will once again celebrate the rich traditions, on-court athleticism, and commitment to excellence of the HBCU community. For tickets, visit nba.com/all-star.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Drew, are we able to play the video or we want to save it a little?
Give me a second.
Certainly. As you
okay, here we go.
I did want to say that. Are we ready to go? Let's go ahead and play it. And we're starting to play that. I want to say on Thursday, I want y'all to be prepared. I want to talk about some of the football. I know we can't seem to get away from it, but we're starting to get the coaches, assistant coaches associated. I want to see y'all thoughts on that. Go ahead and play the video.
Wait a minute.
I'm a real fan of basketball. Like I love basketball. Like I like the game and I like the excitement. I don't care who's playing as long as it's at elite level. So for me, being in a HBCU and graduating from there, I really wanted to come back and make sure we brought back like the sense of pride. I think it gets lost. Like when I was playing, you know, you played for 4 years and you really like transferring was like, ooh, you transferred. You know what I mean? Like it was like a little bit more of a like cliche thing. It was like a little bit more like over there, like she transfer, you know, like it was you go to where you want it and you kind of stick it out. You don't, you know, I called home and told my mama, what am I doing in Mississippi? She's like, well, you can't come home. So what you gonna do? It was no like transfer. So in today's age, you lose something in the HBCU genre where our pride for what it means to be the Prairie View every year, regardless of your record. Like you might not win no other game, but you better compete for them fans versus Prairie View and things like that. That like a lot of people coming in that may be here for a year or two may not naturally get. You lose that sense of the locker room of the seniors being there say, hey, we ain't finna go down there, you know, because the alumni gonna come back and they gonna, you know, like we can't let them down. We better play. That's what I want to make sure, because I think when I first got here, and not that it hasn't been there for years, but I just think it was a little bridge of gap when I got here that wasn't really sticking to what it means to be part of HBCU culture. And I hope, and I'm still learning. The culture is still growing. I don't know everything, right? But I think that's my goal, to instill in that and try to keep bridging that gap. And I hope that my players are starting to feel that too.
When we take a look at Thursday's game, Margaret Richards, no stranger to the conference. What has she brought to this Jackson State team that you've seen on film?
Fire, passion. They play. I mean, they are a unit. They play together. You know, they've always been a talented team, but this team really plays hard for each other. They're excited. You know, they look like they love basketball. You know, it reminds you of being one of those top teams in the state. Like, you know, they're just playing really well for each other. And you can tell that whatever their team mission is, she has a lot of buy-in.
What's some of the things that you plan on doing offensively for Jackson State?
I mean, put the ball in the hole. I mean, I think we're gonna, you know, I don't overcomplicate things when it comes to offense. I get the ball to the people who can score. But the people who can score take the shots. I mean, that's just what it is. Like, I want confident shot. You can't take the shot home. We do feel like we have some offense. You know, I replaced the rest, you know, and so me being I'm a real fan of basketball. Like, I love basketball. Like, I like the game and I like the excitement. I don't care who's playing as long as it's at elite level. So for me, being in a HBCU and graduating from there, I really wanted to come back and make sure we brought back like the sense of.
As we get back into it, before we do this, I want to give a shout out to my son Deuce, as his nickname we call him. He's checking out the show. He's excited as he's texting me during the show. Thankfully, I was watching the video. I was like, I'm working. But I want to shout Deuce out. Him and Miles have decided that they're going to do their own little talk show on HBCU sports. So it's fascinating because they are like into this and they are serious. And so it's just cracking me up. I think my wife is even having some fun at this, and I saw her crack a smile. And so just want to shout out Deuce and Miles. Make sure you check out this show. I'll get you more information on that as giving you a different perspective, a very young perspective.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
So
Miles is already SID.
What I love is the way they watch the games totally different. And like he's been going to the game. He's been on campus, like his trip outside of the house 3 months was at a Prairie View homecoming. Now he stayed in the RV. And my wife, I guess she came to senses by the next day and she came and got her son because it was like 2. I don't know how I tricked her to bring her down there. And it was really good because all the other friends of mine, frat brothers of mine, along with just some good old-fashioned friends, they all had kids. So they probably did a better job of trying to make sure he was right and ask me questions as I'm figuring this out. But he's been going to those games the way I say that. Courtside at Prairie View games, in the suite at Texas Southern at Prairie View. So he also has an elevated idea of what it means to watch games. But he's watched games and does it. But now he's sitting up there and he has a whole different – he asks certain questions as if he's a true commentator. So it's funny as I'm like, all right, yeah. So I just had to break that in there. But let's get back into it as y'all allow me to kind of be a dad for a minute. With that being said, let's look at this top 5 on the women's side. Before we do that, I'm going to say those that are receiving votes. And I'm just going to go off of conference records early on in the season. Alabama A&M Bulldogs sit outside 3-1, 39 votes. Coppin State Eagles 2-1, 32 votes. Southern Jaguars sit at 3-1 with 22 points, I should say. Morgan State Bears at 2-1 at 18 points, and Alabama State Hornets 2-2 with 14 points. We did have a team drop out this week. This is week 2 in terms of the poll rankings that I've been doing, and it was Alabama A&M Bulldogs, who is the top one receiving votes. So the top 5, the team that dropped in is Texas Southern Tigers. We just heard the head coach and her comments starting off on the season at 3-0. First time that they've been 3-0 in a long time. Usually they have to face back then when it was 10 teams, you had to play Southern as they would come in. At that time, Southern's travel partner was Alcorn, and they would have tough teams. So be able to get one of those oftentimes on the road was tough. So Texas Southern has jumped out 3-0. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like, particularly when you think about the 2 wins they got first weekend. They were at home with Southern and Grambling. Grambling was predicted to win the conference, struggling a little bit themselves. Fascinating to see. Credit to Texas Southern Tigers as they're getting it done. Number 4, Jackson State Tigers. Many folks didn't believe that they would be in this place this early on. Getting out here, getting it done. 3-0 in terms of their start. They move up a ranking. They were 5 last weekend. And number 3, North Carolina A&T Aggies. Non-conference, they started off slow. We heard from the independent show on Wednesday that they had some key injuries, but they thought they would be good when they got in the conference play. Well, guess what? Obviously, they've gotten some of those people back, and they at least have started off really well in conference play. Coastal, they're 4-0, but they remain at 3. And number 2, you have Howard Bison. They were 3-0. 7-3. They continue to churn and look solid coming out of the MEAC, and they at second place. At number 1, Norfolk State Spartans. They are 4-0. Those key wins when you think about what they did against the SEC. Well, they picked off where they started. They had one game where they were kind of close in the matchup, but they started to roll now. They're 4-0 in the conference race. All 8 first place votes. They sit up there with 80 points, looking good in terms of that. I'm going to go to you, Wilton. Jackson, the second. What are your thoughts in terms of the women's top 5 in week number 2?
Definitely intrigued with Texas Southern being number 5. I'm excited for this matchup that they have against Jackson State on Thursday. I'm excited to see what the outcome is going to be like. This is a Jackson State team that's jumped out to 3-0 in conference play, but coach will tell you they're still figuring out some things. And having watched some their most recent 2 games, they definitely look good. You can definitely start to see some of the continuity being built there. But I'm really excited in what coach is building and putting together at Texas Southern. So I'm really excited to see what this next test for Jackson State against Texas Southern will look like. With Jackson State at number 4, again, a lot of people were surprised on where they were going to be, coming into the season. But like I said, they're definitely shaping up well. Very excited about North Carolina A&T and what they're doing. To your point, Dr. Cavil, they definitely had some injuries, but now they're in conference play. They're really looking good. As far as Howard and Norfolk State, it's really, for me, it's not really much to say because they're basically doing what I expected them to do. Destiny Howard is hooping it as much as, it's pretty much like I expected her to hoop. And Norfolk State goes without saying they're still playing strong. Strong win over Morgan State. We were talking about that last week. So I'm okay with this top 5.
I appreciate that. And if you continue to text me in this group chat with Charles and y'all excited with this Jackson, I'm gonna tune you off. I'll put you on. Anyway, never mind. Good stuff. Then y'all are like, oh man, Jackson State doing this. Man, get out of here. AD Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of my top 5?
Well, I'm like Edwin. I thought you did a top 6 because I thought we were renaming this a top 5 challenges to Norfolk State. Dr. Cavil's top 5 challenges to Norfolk State. But let's talk about the team who's not in the top 5, Dr. Cavil. Mm-hmm. That would be your wife's alma mater, the Alabama A&M Bulldogs. We thought they were ready to take claim to the throne in the SWAC, but some of Charles's nieces now there said, "Not today, my sister, not today. Y'all were not."
This person's second cousins.
Something. It's like y'all may take this crown, but you will not do it on our court. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened on Thursday night. Is Jackson State just showed grit by coming back and forth with that in that particular ball game to pull out a game that no one. Let's be real. No one had Jackson State winning that game. You thought you was like, yeah, Jackson State's gonna give up a fight, but Dawn Thornton got that thing. She got that whoop, but the stick broke on her when she use that whoop stick.
Yeah. AD Drew, that's one of the ones they were doing a lot more texting. So you're absolutely right. Even the faithful were kind of like, oh, hey, this is good. So okay. Maybe we got down too long. With that being said, let me go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts on the top 5?
Well, I think the first 3, Norfolk State, Howard, A&T has been a little bit surprising, but right in the thick of things. But Norfolk State and Howard, you expect them to be fighting it out for supremacy in the MEAC. But it's the last 2, 4 and 5. I mean, and I think Wilton, you touched on the word that popped up today in the press conference with Coach Skeet. Just in talking about the continuity, a lot of new faces. You talking about Jackson State's entire roster, new faces. Texas Southern, a lot of new faces on their roster. And one of the things, you notice with Texas Southern, they're still learning to kind of pick each other up, during various points of the game. So, and that's one of the things that they kind of touched on today in the press conference. But, this was that year, you're supposed to get your lick back against Jackson State. And so for them to jump out, to a 3-0 start, I think that was surprising. I mean, I was very surprised because I thought Alabama A&M, they would go into Jackson and quite honestly go in and get the dub. But I think it says a lot about this Jackson State team. They're still continuing to learn each other. Texas Southern team continuing to learn each other. It's going to be very interesting to see how they look as we get, towards the second quadrant of conference play and things of that nature. And they start getting these road games. Big test upcoming this Thursday. Jackson State and Texas Southern, going to be a very interesting game. But they got some people who can score and who can rebound. It goes a long way.
Great tease. We will be in the stadium in the gym, I should say, on Thursday for that game, and we'll talk a little bit more about in the last segment. But you're right, that game all of a sudden becomes a lot more interesting than what you probably thought going into the season. With that being said, let's take our next break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll talk about the top five. I'll unveil my top five. Liv has a top five, so we might even do a little bit of comparison to see where I stand versus where she has ranked and what you all think in terms of the rankings in general, just like you did for the women's. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this next break.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's go into the men's side of things. First, we'll pull up the top five, get y'all thoughts on it, and then we'll bring in Liv for that top five and do a little bit of comparison. So let's get in the top five this week. In terms of those receiving votes, you have South Carolina State Bulldogs that are 3-1, playing some really good basketball. I'm not sure how many people picked South Carolina State to be this good in conference play. I think Herbert over on HBCU Nightly, as we gave them a shout out earlier, he talked a little bit about it. This is a team that did good moments in non-conference play, but it's fascinating looking at the work that they're doing and seeing how long they can sustain it. Bethune-Cookman, the Wildcats sit at 2-1. They had the tough loss yesterday on the road against Southern. It's fascinating to see how they played. And Southern took care of them pretty good. So Southern is a team to keep your eyes on. Many of us thought they would be good, but they're really playing some good basketball right now, in my opinion. Prairie A&M Panthers. Now, this is probably a surprise. 3-1 on the season. Obviously, we know Coach Byron Smith, the championship level caliber that he has in his past, but he's kind of took it a dip. Well, it looks like he's found the pieces of the puzzle. As I told a lot about, it's not that he doesn't know how to coach. He just had to get the pieces together. It looks like he got them thus far. They jumped out to a really good one. They had Southern at home, and that was a back and forth, probably about 5 minutes of turnovers, bad basketball, if you allow, is what allows Southern to pull it out. We'll see what that means going forward, just how big that is. We do have the big test this week when you talk about Alcorn State. That's a matchup of the teacher and the pupil coming back together, and then Jackson State that has gotten off to a great start. Interesting to see early rounds of what that looks like. And again, we'll go a little further in that in the fourth segment. Texas Southern Tigers sit at 2-1. They got some big wins in terms of what that looks like. Remember, their game against Pine Bluff was canceled because of the snow. I should probably say postponed because it will be played. It'll be played February. That is the Tuesday after the rivalry game against Prairie View, where they don't have the Monday game because you're playing your rival. So both teams are playing their rival that weekend as Pine Bluff plays Valley. With left that early part of the weekend, they decided to play it not on Monday, tradition when you see the games, but on Tuesday. So they will be able to make up their game, just to get that out, folks that hadn't heard that. Dropping out this week in terms of the matchup of what that looks like is actually South Carolina State, the Bulldogs, in terms of moving around there. I have Howard Bison in number 3. They're 3-0. They were not ranked, but they slide in terms of that 5th spot. At number 4, you have Jackson State Tigers. They sit at 3-0, surprising some folks, ranked number 3, as they are playing some pretty good basketball. Talked about that 3 overtime win. Big basketball, got a win over their rival to start things off that weekend. Now we see it almost at 2-1 that win may be a little more valuable than what we thought. And number 3, Norfolk State Spartans, 3-1. They had a tough upset for some folks. They went on the road to Baltimore. Morgan State put it on them and went back and forth. They were able to do what they usually do, even when they're not necessarily playing really good basketball. They find a way to put themselves a chance to win, actually go up in that matchup. Going down the stretch, they get a rebound. They have a chance to get a layup that would have put them up 1 point. With a couple of seconds left, it gets blocked. Foul was called, so obviously Morgan goes straight to the line, stretches it out, but there's also a technical call on that, which basically seals the game as they make those free throws, and that's where you got your stretch and the score at the end. With that being said, we have number 2, Hampton Pirates, 2-1 on the season as they're in coastal play. Picked up a big victory as they got off the mat after a tough loss last week, but they're in the mix. Probably had one of the best non-conference schedules and victories over the year, plus some wins over MEAC independent programs. So it'll be fascinating to see how they continue to move forward. But they're playing some good basketball. Number 1, Southern Jaguars, are 4-0. As everybody has some type of first place vote, respectively. Southern has 4, Hampton has 3, Norfolk State 2, Jackson State 1, and Howard Bison as 1. Be interesting as this goes along to see who gets to shake that off and remain in that position and maybe get a couple more of these first place votes as things get more discernible. I'm going to go to you, AD Drew, first in terms of what are your thoughts in terms of the top 5 I just gave.
Norfolk was the king of the preseason, garnering the most non-conference wins out of any HBCU. I believe the only HBCU with double-digit wins. And now conference play has opened up, and they have kind of come back to the pack, at least as far as the voters are concerned, because now you've got the Southern Jaguars sitting up there, and you've got a Hampton team who probably had just as impressive of non-conference schedule and non-conference victories as Norfolk State. I guess the interesting thing is we won't see these teams meet up against each other because none of them are in the same conference. None of them, they would do it to us and put 2 HBCUs in the first 4, would they?
They done it once, but it's wild. But it's highly unlikely.
It's highly unlikely.
We had Texas Southern and North Carolina Central playing that game, which I was able to go see in person. Pretty cool.
Yeah, but so hopefully this plays out. I'm really interested. Like I say, I really am interested in this Howard team. Are they as good as people say they are? Is this freshman as good as they say he is? So I'm just kind of It's still early, Dr. Cavil,
It really is.
because there's some teams sitting out there 0-2, 0-3 who we had high expectations for.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really concern you as a fan to after King Day. If your team is 0 for the month and you get to King Day, now you need to start worrying if you're a basketball fan. And on the flip side, if your team is 0 come King Day, don't start booking your reservations yet, because it's a long season. It's
a long grind.
You got 6 more weeks to go. You got tournament play. Something that don't book your reservations for Dayton yet, because that's where we're going, right? Just want to make sure everybody understands we going to Dayton no matter what we do.
Yeah, 2 teams to me to keep your eyes on that is interesting. That Alabama A&M 2-2. Yeah. Alabama State at 2-2, and even Grambling at 1-3. You think they're going to get some things, and if they can't get back in the mix enough because there's so much in the hole, they're going to spoil it for somebody. So that's absolutely keep it on. Yeah. Alabama A&M and Alabama State playing some really good basketball. Tough part of their schedule, so that 2-2 may fool some folks. So I agree with you. Some teams to keep your eyes on. And the MEAC, it'll be a little interesting. A team that's always tough as home, North Carolina Central. They sit at 2-2, one to keep your eye on. Morgan State, they got the win over Norfolk State. You get that kind of win at home, you need to at least keep your eye on while Howard and Norfolk State are doing what they normally do. And can South Carolina State, much like Prairie View, continue to build on their early success? Are some things I want to watch. So with that being said, I will say this also in terms of what that looks like, Drew. Don't forget the CIT, CBI. Maybe you can see a couple of these matchups, particularly in the CIT, where they designate a spot seeking to get HBCU. So if you don't get the big win in terms of the tournament, getting your dance, now it's much harder to get in the NIT. CIT may become a little more intriguing to your point and be interesting. Do we get those matchups there? If not, you even have the Black College basketball tournament that I'm sure is going to be trying to get some teams to play in there. So there might be another place where you get some of these key matchups. So a couple of things behind the scene where you're right. Normally we don't get these matchups. I'm going to be intrigued to see, can these postseason tournaments get a chance to make a run to try to get some of these matchups that would intrigue us all. Wilton, what are your thoughts on the top 5?
Kind of piggybacking a little bit from AD's point, and we've said it in previous weeks, it's still early on. Like I've said previously for the women's side, like these rankings are going to change, but for now, like I said, I like Howard. I like the freshman player that they have. He's balling out, having a strong season. I like what they're doing. I don't know if they're gonna win the MEAC, of course, but because of course due to Norfolk State, and then I still feel like to the point that you guys were just making, I feel like somewhere along those lines, North Carolina Central is still going to make somewhat of a run. Like some of these traditional teams that have been really, really good in the MEAC, I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I definitely think that they're going to make it competitive. And it's going to be a rough ride. Like it's going to, it's still a lot more season to be played. But right now, Howard definitely looks good. Jackson State looks good as well. Romeo at center. And then for those who may not know, Deshaun Ruffin, former McDonald's All-American, he's coming back to form.
Yeah,
he I've seen some highlights. Well, I saw the games that he's played in, but like some highlights, and I was just like, yeah, he's definitely taking form like he used to be before the injuries and things like that. Norfolk State, not a surprise. Hampton's looking strong with Noah Farrakhan and George Beal. And Southern, I mean, really starting to put a stamp on where they are in the SWAC. But again, I definitely expect Grambling to gain some ground in the SWAC on the men's side. And also, although Alabama State dropped a game against Jackson State, keep an eye on their guards. They have some really athletic guards that can go. And I mean really go. So
and score. Yeah.
And they not only do they score, but they score efficiently. So that's a team that you surely want to make sure you keep an eye on going forward down the stretch.
I agree with you. Great information. Shout out to Sportmind. He said South Carolina State and Norfolk State will decide the MEAC.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't surprise anybody with Norfolk State. I think he's saying look out for South Carolina State. I told you earlier they play some good basketball. So I'm agreeing with him.
Ahead of Howard and Central? That's interesting.
We're gonna have a
I
dog
agree.
fight in the MEAC.
That's
We're gonna have a
interesting.
dog fight in the MEAC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Charles Bishop, what do you thought in top 5?
Yeah, let me tell you the impressive thing thus far about Southern. They got to Texas two-step out the way. Impressive to knock out Prairie View and Texas Southern on the road and bookend that by knocking off another team that fell out the top 5 last week in Bethune-Cookman at home. So huge wins thus far. And taking a look at Southern, and the thing that jumps out for me, they've had a couple players. They got a sniper that can shoot the three. You saw the 3-point attempts that he was getting up, but they also had a couple guys that got double doubles over the weekend. So impressive showing thus far for the Southern Jaguars. Wilton, I think you touched on it with regards to Jackson State, and you mentioned it. Deshaun Ruffin is a former McDonald's All-American, had a significant injury, and now he's starting to play his way back into shape, and we see what he can do. And it's very interesting. You talk about guard play with Alabama State. Jackson State, I think, has some very interesting guard play as well, and Kevon Hunt, a strong guy, but both of their guards can get into the lane and can get to the free throw line. That's the thing that jumps out with me. I think both this past game against Alabama A&M, 8 and 10 free throw attempts respectively. So anytime you can create contact and get get away from the guy in front of you, I think that says something about Jackson State. Then they have an individual who's a rim protector in Ramel. So when you take a look at what he's able to do, so they're an intriguing team. But the question, and we seem to ask this every year with regards to Jackson State, can they stay healthy?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
that is the dart.
I think that's the big thing. But I think when you start taking a look at the rest of the top 5, I think we're just going to have a dogfight in the MEAC. I think I whipped my head this past weekend with Norfolk State losing. South Carolina State, I think they lost the game before, if I'm not mistaken, to Delaware State. So it's like you just don't know game to game what might happen in the MEAC. So I think it's going to be fun watching those games the rest of the season.
Let's take our last break. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll just talk about this. We won't go that far down the season, but we're going to talk about this weekend's matchup and see what these gentlemen say about some key games to keep your eyes on. The MEAC, SWAC, whether it's men's and or on women's side, they'll give you those updates. Remember, women start on Thursday. We'll do our show live from the HMPE Arena. We'll see if we can surprise you and maybe get some additional nuggets during the show since we're watching the game to see what that looks like. And we'll talk about those games coming up, the double headers on Saturday, and then the showcase on Monday for the men. With that being said, stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, everybody get down. It's like a loop machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with AD Drew, Charles Bishop, Wilton Jackson II. Want to get into some of the key matchups. What's on your mind this weekend? I'm gonna start with you, Charles, because I think I know the first ones you're gonna go. Since we will be in the arena, it's kind of hard for us not to think about that matchup, particularly with two undefeated teams coming in. Top 5 matchup based on what we just said today. What are your thoughts of some of the games that you have your eyes on, whether it's men or women?
Well, obviously, I think taking a look at Texas Southern and Jackson State on the women's side of the ball this upcoming Thursday, two upstarts. And like I said, you did not expect them to be in this position where they started off the season undefeated, but that is going to be a great game. I think when you take a look at that, and both have scores. When you're talking about Loudon for Courtney Loudon for Texas Southern, and then Dilworth for Jackson State. So how will they go about trying to stop both of their scores? And the fact that this year we're taking a look at a Texas Southern basketball team that can rebound the basketball. I think they beat you up with second chance points, and that's something that we normally associated with Jackson State women's basketball over the past 4 or 5 years. In terms of second chance opportunities and just creating more offensive opportunities for them. So that's on the women's side. That's the ones that I'm looking for. And then I think on the men's side of things, just Alcorn hitting the road this weekend. I think that's going to be a huge game in terms of Texas Southern on Saturday. I'll be calling that game on SWAC Digital. And then going to Prairie View on Monday. So that's going to be a huge game for Alcorn. Like you said, student-teacher matchup on Monday. But can they kind of set the ship afloat and get up and going and things with that nature, because they have some pieces over there.
Good stuff. So he gonna drop that mic like that real sweet, like he's like, oh, okay, sorry. With that being said, Wilton Jackson, what are your thoughts in terms of these matchups?
So I'm gonna kind of focus more on the men's side. There's some really intriguing matchups on the men's side, specifically starting on Saturday. You got Grambling at Southern. We know the struggles Grambling has dealt with. Obviously, for people who don't know but should know, Kentavious Dozier, very important piece of that Grambling side of things. I'm interested to see is Grambling gonna, be able to kind of right the ship to kind of fix some things against a really hot Southern team right now in the SWAC. And then if that's not not enough, you got Alabama State at Alabama A&M. Like I said, I already kind of alluded to the fact that Alabama State's guard play and what they're able to do. They got like two or three guards they can just like really like go and score. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. You get somewhat of a Magic City Classic on the court, and then you got Jackson State at Prairie View. You guys talked about where Prairie View's at right now. We obviously know that the coach that they have, and Mo Williams, bringing his squad to Prairie View. They're making the first part of that Texas trip. So I'm interested. Those are 3 intriguing games off rip on Saturday that I'll definitely have my eye on.
I like that. Good stuff. Drew, where you want to split? Let's focus on the women, focus on the men. Where direction are you heading into for your analysis?
Actually, I want to start in the other conference. I want to start in the MEAC. And if everybody notices, the MEAC is kind of taking the King Holiday weekend off. But I do want to talk about those Howard Bison who are doing their Division II tour this week. D2 two-step. As they take on Bowie State. I believe that's tomorrow night, if I remember.
It is a Wednesday matchup.
Yeah, that's they've got Bowie State tomorrow night, and of course they take on Morehouse on Monday night. I just think it's kind of interesting at this point in time in the season that you step out and you play not 1 but 2 Division IIs, and for a Howard team, this could be a confidence builder as they get ready to go into the tough MEAC play, because on paper these are 2 teams that they should beat. So
Coach Blakely, I love his scheduling, and I'll come back to you to your point. I love some of his scheduling philosophy. He plays a lot more HBCUs. He takes his team on the tour, and I think they are uniquely positioned as, they coin themselves the Mecca, but we know they're a national brand, so they have alumni everywhere, but he shares that. I mean, they were in Atlanta for a matchup early this season against a SWAC team in terms of what that looks like. But they've done that before. They played in the Chris Paul tournament. They play up there in terms of the HBCU showcase on CBS in terms of the crossover against a rival out of the Coastal. They play in New Jersey. But unlike the other teams, as you said, that takes this weekend off because of the number of teams they have, as they bake in the backside of this, much like they do in football with conference play, just the way it works out, there's an open weekend, and they decide to do it on MLK weekend, which makes a lot of sense from the conference. But I like the fact, to your point, Drew, that they don't stay idle and they find some teams to play, which would be difficult, obviously, to play other Division I schools because they're in conference. But there are opportunity maybe to bring up some Division II programs. Obviously, they have the showcase on MLK, which has become a staple now, playing Morehouse, which obviously is fascinating as Howard uses this opportunity for the MEAC to recruit Morehouse, but that's a whole different schedule. Certainly money. And then you have your neighbors in Morgan right there, Greater Morgan, Greater Baltimore area, to play Bowie State at Division II level. So you got an SIAC and CIAA team. You're able to pay some money to them, so you help those institutions, give them some spotlight in terms of playing at Division I level. And again, is this a backdoor way for MEAC to try to recruit some of these Division II programs, as I've always pushed out there? Who knows? But continue your point, Drew, because a lot of good information there, but I couldn't ignore that and had to share that.
Yeah, in the SWAC, I'm really interested in the Alcorn State Texas Southern matchup. Texas Southern has been the king of the SWAC on the men's side forever. It has been called the Texas Invitational for no reason when we talk about the SWAC basketball tournament. But we know Coach Landon Bussing down there at Alcorn over the last couple of years has made more than his statement within the SWAC. So that's kind of a old guard against the young buck matchup that I always like to look at. And this one is kind of, and I'm reaching for this one. On Thursday for the women and on Monday for the men, FAMU plays Valley. Now, I know it's a different sport, but if you don't think those student athletes in orange or green do not remember what those student athletes in the red and green did to their football team less than 3 months ago, you're going to be sadly mistaken. I know it's a different sport, but student athletes hang out together. They remember things like this. There's going to be some get back for their brother on the gridiron.
What alumni
on the hardwood. What was that, Charles?
I said alumni sure remember, man.
Oh, hell yeah. Bro, that was going to the grave.
It will be fascinating, that matchup, because both of those teams need a win to your greater point. So I certainly believe that whether they remember or not, there's going to be a focus on that game in terms of what that looks like, because somebody's going to come out of that game feeling good that they're able to get a win. So to your point, I'm intrigued about what that looks like. Final matchups for me, obviously, I'm agreeing with you. What you said in a lot of ways. I'm looking at Jackson State, Prairie View on the men's side. Fascinating to see what that looks like. Grambling, can they had Southern's numbers? Can they find a way to start to turn things around here? Or will Southern kind of get that statement win against a rival and continue to roll, which everybody expects? But lately, they just haven't been able to get it done. So I'm fascinated. Alcorn State at Texas Southern. Texas Southern's kind of struggled late. They got a big win, and it was big against Valley, almost 30 points. Are they finding themselves, as we always seem to think Texas Southern does? Will Bussey come in there and continue to make his statements in Texas, starting on Saturday in terms of in Houston, and then find a way to go down Monday? and continue to get it done against his former coach, head coach that he worked with in terms of that coach, former coach and new coach matchup, where I'm always looking at how that matches up. And then Monday, the one that I always like to ask you, Charles, we always talk about the Monday matchup in terms of that. Who will slip up? Who proverbially at home gets slipped up this weekend in terms of that matchup? You got Mississippi Valley at FAMU, Arkansas behind Bluff at Bethune-Cookman, Jackson State at Texas Southern, Arkansas State at Prairie View. Which of those are going to have some problems in terms of the Monday matchup on the men's side? We got to find out a new way to look at that for the Thursday. I don't know what you call that, but it's always the Monday matchup.
It's gonna happen on Saturday in the women's game, because you had the Monday mayhem. So I don't know what we got to coin something for the women for the Saturday. The Saturday shake up. I don't know.
I like that one. That one might work. Charles,
pay attention to Alcorn and Prairie View and Jackson State at Texas.
So you gonna do that to your boy? Okay.
Yeah, that's those gonna be the good ones.
Jackson State at Texas Southern. So you want you got a little something on Texas on your mind? Okay.
Yeah, Texas two-step this weekend for the Mississippi guys.
Mm-hmm. Wilton, you want in there? AD said something about shaking up in terms of women's side. Take care of your stuff on Saturday. Any of your heartbreak on Saturday or Monday? Women for Saturday, men on Monday. Keep your eye on.
Not so much on the women's side for Saturday for me, but Monday definitely got my eye on that Jackson State Texas Southern game, like for sure. But you know what? I'm gonna stick with that one. But a very close.
I agree with you. Actually, this is a time where I think a lot of people should be focused on that matchup. Usually, over the years, it's been a really intense and really good game. Yeah. But in terms of expectation, who can get off the mat, what takes place is early. But this is a key matchup early on the season in terms of what it looks like. So I agree with you in a lot of ways. The interest shifts to Texas this weekend. Previous weekends, I think it's shifted to Mississippi. We'll see maybe the following weekend does it shift to Alabama or shift to Florida. With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, we thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. We look forward to Thursdays. We'll give you some updates in terms of some of the coaching searches. In addition to coaching staffs, get your thoughts in terms of what maybe that looks like. We'll get a chance to get into some talk of our mid-majors, Division II, NIA. We'll give you updates in terms of how those teams are progressing and as they shape up and try to form what the season will look at it. They get prepared for tournament play, both in terms of conference and then postseason as they chase national championships. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil, Facebook and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. That's on YouTube and Facebook as well. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We'll talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
AD.
Lecture.
Wilton.
Dismissed.
Travel light, everybody.